reforms, more African case resolutions during the relate talking the despite actually the region that is most warning global warming all what we've been seeing in the continent which is the fact that rise financing, and we need to change that. We need to include vulnerability as one of the criteria to be eligible for to actually or to perhaps also have been, for example, of ACS and rechannel it. Happen. Action. About trees to carry.
Doctor. Strategy, which has led Ethiopia to prioritize a number of investments in these green sectors. To what extent have you succeeded, and what are the policies that you have put in place to facilitate this kind of investment, and what are the challenges that you are facing in being able to raise additional climate finance? We look forward to hear your thoughts on this. And just to mention to all the panelists, because of time constraints, if we can all be within around 5 minutes, that would be perfect.
All right. Thank you. First, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the organizers of this panel discussion and for inviting Ethiopia to speak on this important topic. You know, its success stories as well as the challenge that it's facing. As you know, climate change is among the the major challenges that are affecting the growth trajectories and the but for countries like Ethiopia, it's a reality. It's not something that we talk about as a, as I always say, as a fancy word. So for us, when we talk about climate action, climate finance, climate action, important, and we work on this. There is a vicious cycle between crisis, climate-related shocks. Question with mitigation and other urban development sectors. Since the so close to overwhelming part of the finance partners, which means the finance from the private sector on the so Ethiopia's commitment, clear strategy, global and regional commitment, low emission development strategy, other required policy climate
the Minister of State in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK. Thank you. But we appreciate that the messages are coming out, and that's one of the most important things. And I will come to you, Lungu. We have leadership of Kenya, and I think we all heard President Ruto in his opening address this morning speaking about the opportunities for investing in climate resilience. And of course, for us to move from this narrative of threat to opportunity, we have to unlock certain mechanisms. And from your perspective and the perspective of Kenya, thank you for saying 3 priorities.
Thank you very much, and indeed I'm very happy to be here, although I was hoping just from the locate my geography, but in that actually 5 from yeah, but the fiscal space volatile conditions. So I was looking at that in terms of we came into a serious, should I say, economic crisis. One of them was the aftermath of the COVID-19 to the supply side, but more importantly was persistent, and we haven't seen something like it in the last 40 years. Even any of the efforts that you need to have. So in a sense, it becomes so I wanted just to make 4 points. Structure of find and what more how is the spreads. It creates even and so as a actually big, for example, the Horn of Africa. At one time we were looking at it in terms of everybody, and one of the questions we had some work with Brookings Institute is to ask, can you compare the Horn of African countries and ask yourself whether they are to the right of 1.5 degrees Celsius in terms of global warming? And we found that they were actually to the right of that. It's actually extremely difficult. To be very, very important into the future. So essentially, it's a development crisis. That's the second point I want. When I looked at the pattern of the fund, that or can actually with support to try to fatten in a for us then it's very very important. Fiscal consolidation make is that the frustration, of course, every day we talk about how do we get support. Right now, for example, in Kenya, in the new administration, our work has been trying to say, look, we have to create, or let's say, to get you to where you are supposed to be, and also the speed can actually resolve some of these crises and can help countries so you know is that is where the effect of climate change. But what do we need to do? One of the emerging markets
think that look that's also and for fiscal allow us to move at speed, to have and in particular profiling the risks, the risks precisely the larger need, and then of course and the we number includes a more something that has been 27, and through these climate resilient by suspending debt repayment where climate how to address the finance for.
Well, look, thank you. Actually speak over the way and speaking with very loud amplification. So I did, because the amplification was to be the quite on the also object a couple of I believe of on our the world. Climate change is no longer present here and now, and it hits the poorest countries, particularly in Africa first. Forms that are now contemplated. So we need to ensure that the Bridgetown agenda is developed and delivered. We've got UNGA coming up, we've got the SDG summit, we've got the bank meeting 7. Spent a minute here, 100 what we third schedule except or problem. Sure that we are doing the climate. I think you the means quit is had and
You've emphasized the particularly after as well, to hear the thoughts of Ghana. Interest, opportunity, which I think Ahmed, I guess. So, and we of course welcome as creditors committee challenges that you have been facing in terms of and what you would like to see change.
Much so. But it is true. Under the IMF, as a result of unsustainable and IMF different, which are held by denominated bondholders participation on the domestic debt. Then you have the external two types. External, the second one in relation to structure frame we have priority for our economy a lot to address, but because of treasury if able through borrow got to unsustainable debt levels. The second in Ukraine also affected us heavily because, as you know, because rate very you as trans state now Yeah. To not before to 20 payment period yeah that long with back structure you are in the like structure like just of saying fine as day are there for ever win countries like Ghana and other distressed countries we are completely small out your income levels must not be and so the criteria that
and idea about the buckets, but I'd love to hear preferably if this can be expressed in 1 minute or less. Our DES Hanan.
Thank you. I think I'd like to focus on action on what we can get. Perhaps by the and COP20 areas to get them done. I think that we have the 5 reach rights can to 4 times. The eligibility criteria for concessional criteria so that actually middle income countries and within this assuring resource is sufficient, even like regressing to what we have now. That's urgent. We need to make sure funded the subsidy account. The UK can champion. And last, Minister Mitchell rightly highlighted, is the already had UK committing. Can we these and my 4 priorities? We need make
Thank
financial institutions and the global corporations, if they are meant for improving lives, it means it really needs reform. That it's now it needs to serve the purpose. Architecture, streamlining and fast. Anna was mentioning, of course, additional financing. But we seem to be confused, while financing for more challenge, facing the impacts much to the global climate challenge. So just between adaptation and mitigation, grant allocations, budget supports for developing countries, especially for African countries, particularly for climate adaptation actions. IMF, which allows allocation of special drawing rights to respond to ongoing global crisis. Aid for nature and climate swaps. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can I go to Minister?
So much, and the two things that or two solutions I would like maybe to advocate. First is actually to recognize that why this Africa Climate Summit was actually developed, proposed, and even we have worked towards this, and it's also feeding from even the Paris meeting, is because we need to take actions. We need solutions, and those solutions had better work, because essentially we cannot even talk about adaptation and resilience unless those solutions are working. Specific solution, and once means that we can forward. Once that is solved, or system, for example, and that is going to allow resources to finance development, but at the same time tax system that is also friendly to the private sector or to the heterogeneity is going to support the new administration transformation agenda. Economic development
healthy people and strongly that we